Alexandra Eala, what are you going to do next? That is some win.
Oh my god.
Alex, I think everyone here is waiting to hear from you. You looked incredibly locked in throughout that match. You let the racket do the talking, and you managed your emotions so well. Just tell us your first thoughts after that win.
Oh, all the emotions are coming because the tension was so high, especially during that second set. So I'm really happy to have gotten through.
Something is not adding up, and if you're only watching the scoreboard, you're missing the real story. Tomorrow morning, the headlines will be neat, polished, and predictable. They'll say Jasmine Paolini simply had an off day. They'll blame the conditions.
The court speed. Mid-season fatigue.
A forehand that just wasn't clicking. The broadcast panels will nod in agreement and move on. But if you actually look at what happened on that court, the numbers tell a completely different story. This wasn't a bad day. This was a dismantling. When Alexandra Eala walked onto that court, she wasn't supposed to dominate a top 10 veteran. Paolini isn't some inexperienced player who got lucky with a ranking boost. She's battle-tested. She understands tempo control, point construction, pressure management. Players at that level do not get blown off the court by accident. And yet the first set ended 6-1. Read that again. You do not hand the world no. 6-6 to 1 set unless something catastrophic has happened to their game plan. That scoreline is not tight but unlucky. It's not a couple of bad games.
It's domination.
It means one player solved the puzzle immediately and the other had no answers. But here's where it gets unsettling. If you dig into the raw analytics from the match, what Eala accomplished makes almost no mathematical sense. Because she did it with a glaring weakness on paper, Eala carried a statistical flaw into this match that should have guaranteed her defeat. Her margin for error in key service moments was razor thin. In most professional matches, numbers like that spell disaster. Top 10 players feast on those cracks. They expose them. They punish them. Instead, Eala weaponized it. That's the part no one is talking about. From the opening games, she disrupted Paolini's rhythm in a way that felt surgical. She attacked early in rallies, refused to give predictable patterns, and forced Paolini into uncomfortable contact points. The veteran couldn't settle.
Couldn't build. Couldn't breathe.
The scoreboard ran away before the match even found balance. Then came the second set, the real test. Paolini adjusted, as champions do. The rallies stretched. The resistance hardened. Momentum shifted back and forth. And this is where most young players blink. This is where experience suffocates belief. Instead, Eala held firm and dragged the set into a tiebreak. 7-5 under maximum pressure. That's not luck. That's nerve control. And here's the psychological layer that makes this match even more significant. Paolini knew about the weakness.
She had to.
Her team studies tape. They build scouting reports. They would have targeted it in practice sessions leading up to this match. But Eala inverted the pressure. She played so aggressively, so decisively, that Paolini never had the platform to exploit the flaw. Instead of defending it, Eala overwhelmed the court with pace and variation, forcing rushed decisions and compressed reaction windows. The veteran wasn't dictating, she was surviving. And surviving isn't winning. This wasn't a highlight reel upset built on wild shot making. It was tactical suffocation. It was a young player understanding risk, embracing it, and daring a top 10 opponent to handle chaos. That's why this match matters. Because when a rising player can beat an elite veteran 6-1 and then close a tiebreak 7-5 while carrying a statistical liability, it signals something bigger than a single result. It suggests adaptability, strategic awareness, psychological resilience. The mainstream narrative will call it an anomaly. But inside locker rooms, coaches are rewinding the tape. Because what happened wasn't random, it was calculated.
For Alexandra Eala. Listen to that noise. Thank you, Jasmine, she says. Paolini gracious as ever in defeat. The former champion is out.
Let's expose the illusion. On the surface, Jasmine Paolini's numbers look impressive. If you isolate one stat, just one, you could easily convince yourself she served beautifully. 74%. That was her first serve percentage. Pause and think about that in modern women's tennis. Landing nearly 3/4 of your first serves is supposed to mean control,
authority, command.
When you're putting that many first balls in play, you're dictating from the very first strike. You're forcing the returner into defense. You're setting patterns. You're running the geometry of the court. In coaching doctrine, 74% is elite consistency.
It's stability.
It's the foundation of a winning performance. But this is where the illusion collapses. Because percentages without context are dangerous. Now look at the second number, the one nobody wants to talk about. Paolini won just 51% of those first serve points. Let that sink in. She was landing her primary weapon all afternoon, and losing nearly half the points behind it. That is not normal. That is not a tough returner. That is a tactical ambush. So how does a top 10 player land her first serve 74% of the time and still fail to control the match? The answer isn't subtle, it's violence. Eala didn't respect the stat. She attacked it. From the first few games, Eala recognized something critical: the serve looked accurate, but it lacked weight.
It was precise, yes. It hit corners. It kissed the lines.
But it didn't explode off the court. It didn't kick high enough to push her back. It didn't penetrate. It was high percentage but low intimidation. And Eala made a ruthless decision. Instead of retreating to buy time, she stepped forward. Not to the baseline. Inside it, that's the most aggressive message you can send to a server. It says your best shot doesn't scare me. Why taking the ball early, almost on the rise, Eala removed Paolini's recovery window. The Italian would land a clean first serve, expect a neutral rally, and instead watch the ball scream back at her feet or rip past her down the line. Time disappeared. Control flipped. And suddenly that 74% became a trap. Because every predictable, well-placed serve gave Eala rhythm. It gave her a read. It gave her timing. Instead of scrambling, she was dictating off the return, which is statistically one of the hardest things to do at this level. She finished with 30 return points won, compared to Paolini's 23. That margin doesn't look enormous on paper, on court, it felt catastrophic. Now imagine the psychological effect. You go through your service routine.
Bounce the ball. Breathe. Toss. Strike clean.
You hear that satisfying pop off the strings. The serve lands exactly where you aimed. And less than a second later, the ball is flashing past you, again, and again. And again. It's demoralizing in a way that stats don't capture. Because serving is supposed to be your moment of safety.
Your reset button.
Your control lever. Eala turned it into chaos. And here's what makes it brilliant: she didn't just block returns back to neutral.
She attacked with intent.
She redirected down the line. She drove deep through the middle. She forced Paolini to defend immediately after executing what should have been her strongest shot. That breaks rhythm. That breeds doubt. When doubt creeps in, players start pressing. They go for a little extra pace. They aim closer to lines. The margins shrink.
Errors creep in.
Confidence cracks. That's how a 6-1 set happens against a world no. 6. Not through luck. Not through hot streaks. Through systematic dismantling of a perceived strength. Eala saw the illusion, the shiny 74%, and understood it wasn't backed by intimidation. She treated it like a liability instead of a weapon. And in doing so, she flipped the entire architecture of the match. That's not just aggressive returning, that's strategic audacity.
She's a great opponent, obviously being top 10 and a former champion here, so to be able to compete with her at this level is a great achievement for me. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that second set. At 5-3, you had a couple match points, and then in the tiebreak again. What was going through your mind to close it out?
Yeah,
Now stop everything, because this is where the match stops being impressive and starts becoming terrifying. Up until now you could explain it away. You could say Eala returned well. You could argue Jasmine Paolini misfired under pressure. You could twist the narrative into something comfortable. But the next number on the stat sheet destroys comfort: 38%. That was Eala's second serve win percentage. Read that again slowly. 38% at the professional level, especially on the WTA Tour, that number is catastrophic. If you're winning barely over 1 out of every 3 second serve points, you are not just vulnerable. You are bleeding. You are practically handing your opponent a loaded weapon and inviting them to pull the trigger. When Eala missed her first serve, the points statistically tilted hard toward Paolini. And to Paolini's credit, she attacked those second serves aggressively.
She stepped in. She dictated.
She finished. Now look at the contrast. Despite being overwhelmed in the first set, Paolini won 69% of her own second serve points. 69%. If you printed that stat sheet, covered the names, erased the final score, and handed it to any professional coach in the world, they would point at one thing: player A wins 38% behind her second serve. Player B wins 69%. They would bet everything that player B won comfortably. Because in tennis math, that disparity almost guarantees defeat, especially against a top 10 veteran seeded 6th in a major event. Winning a straight sets match while losing that many second serve points is like trying to win a marathon with a pulled hamstring. It should not happen. So how did it How did Eala survive long enough to force a second set tiebreak and then win it 7-5 with that flaw hanging over her head like a storm cloud? The answer is ruthless clarity. Eala understood exactly what was happening. She knew her second serve was a liability. She knew every missed first serve was essentially a gift. She knew Paolini was waiting for it. Most young players, when they feel that pressure, shrink. They decelerate their first serve just to avoid missing.
Their arm tightens. Their toss drifts.
They start playing not to lose. Eala did the opposite. She refused to let the second serve define the match. Look at her first serve percentage, 77%. Nearly 8 out of 10 first serves landed in. But this wasn't cautious serving.
She didn't roll it in. She didn't guide it.
When her first serve landed and it did 77% of the time, she won 73% of those points. That's elite. She made a calculated decision. If the second serve is broken today, then I simply won't rely on it. Every first serve became high stakes. Every toss carried pressure. Miss by inches, and the point likely disappears. But she embraced that risk. She committed to aggression. She trusted her mechanics under fire. That's not recklessness. That's championship DNA. Instead of hiding from her weakness, she buried it under first strike dominance. And that takes a rare level of mental resilience. You can teach footwork.
You can refine a backhand. You can drill patterns.
But you cannot easily teach the courage to swing freely knowing that a miss hands your opponent momentum. Eala's tennis IQ radiated through that decision-making. She managed her own vulnerability while simultaneously applying relentless pressure on the other side of the net. And then we arrive at the real separator in professional tennis, the margins. Matches at this level aren't decided by highlight shots. They're decided at 30-40.
At deuce. At break point.
In the silent seconds before impact when the crowd freezes and the air thickens. Paolini had 4 breakpoint opportunities in the entire match. She converted 2.
50%.
Solid but not devastating. Eala generated 8 to double the pressure. She converted 4 to she was constantly knocking on the door.
Constantly threatening.
Every service game Paolini played felt unstable. That kind of repeated stress erodes even experienced players. Now look at total points won. Eala, 72 to Paolini, 57 day plus 15 differential in a match that included a second set tiebreak is enormous. That's not scraping by. That's control disguised by a close scoreboard. This wasn't a lucky net chord. It wasn't a few fortunate lines. It was structural dominance. The momentum data tells the same story. At T1 stage, Eala won 8 consecutive points. 8, that's 2 love games back-to-back against the world no. 6. That requires sustained precision, clean execution, and unshakable focus. Paolini's longest streak? 5 points. Eala's peaks were higher and they lasted longer. She also strung together 5 consecutive games. 5 in elite tennis, losing 5 games in a row feels like suffocation. You look to your box for answers. You search for patterns. You adjust tactics. And nothing sticks. That psychological weight is crushing. Even the service totals reinforce the imbalance. Despite the disastrous 38% second serve stat, Eala still won 42 points on her own serve. Paolini won 34. Eala captured 8 service games. Paolini only 5. Eala hit 2 aces. Paolini hit none. Every aggressive metric first strike success, return dominance, breakpoint pressure, point differential, momentum streaks lean toward Eala's. Oh, what does this really mean? It means the weakness didn't define her. She didn't play perfect tennis. She played intelligent tennis. She understood where she was vulnerable and engineered the match so that vulnerability rarely decided the outcome. She overcompensated with first strike aggression, with return positioning inside the baseline, with sustained pressure in key moments. That's evolution. And that's why this result sends shockwaves through the tour. Because if a young player can defeat a top 10 veteran 6-1, 7-6 while carrying a glaring statistical flaw, imagine what happens on a day when that flaw disappears. This wasn't just an upset. It was a warning.
I have a feeling they'll be back.
I think they might be.
And here's the detail that quietly completes the picture. Double faults. Alexandra Eala hit 2. Jasmine Paolini hit 4. Even in error, Eala was sharper.
More disciplined.
More controlled. That's not random noise in a stat sheet, that's composure under stress. What we witnessed wasn't just a strong performance. It was a structural shift. A warning flare shot high above the WTA skyline. Because when a young player can step onto center court, watch her second serve collapse to 38%, and still dismantle the world number 6 by a 6-1 first set before closing a pressure-packed 7-5 tiebreak, that's not variance, that's evolution. Eala proved something far more dangerous than good form. She proved she doesn't need perfect conditions. She doesn't need every stroke firing. She doesn't need statistical symmetry. She needs clarity. She needs conviction. She needs the courage to double down on aggression when conventional wisdom says retreat. Think about what that means for the rest of the tour. Most players win when their weapons click. When the serve flows. When the rhythm feels natural. Eala just won while carrying a glaring liability. She absorbed the damage on her second serve and compensated with ruthless first strike tennis. She neutralized Paolini's 74% first serve rate. She flipped a 51% first serve win percentage into a psychological avalanche. She read the numbers in real time. She recognized that Paolini's weapon lacked bite and attacked it. That's elite processing speed. That's competitive intelligence. And that's the trait you see in future Grand Slam contenders. Because Grand Slams are not won with flawless tennis. They're won with adaptive tennis. With problem solving under pressure. With the nerve to swing freely when margins shrink. So the next time someone reduces this to Paolini had an off day, remember the math. Remember 38%. Remember 51%. Remember the plus 15-point differential. Numbers don't get emotional. They don't spin narratives. They don't protect reputations. They reveal leverage. And what the numbers revealed today is a player who can identify leverage faster than her opponent can respond. So now the real question becomes this. Was this the breakout moment? Was this the day Eala crossed from rising prospect to legitimate threat? Or was Paolini simply out of rhythm and caught in a bad tactical matchup? Because if this is sustainable, if Eala can bring this level of aggression and decision-making into a major tournament, then the top 10 isn't just being challenged, but it's being hunted. How concerned should established players be knowing that someone this fearless, this analytical, and this resilient is climbing the rankings? Drop your analysis. Break down the patterns. Challenge the narrative. Because one thing is clear: the hierarchy felt stable yesterday. Today, it looks vulnerable.